So hello, everyone, and welcome to this press briefing with the National Taxpayer Advocate today. It is March 29th, and we're going to get started with a quick overview of some of the tech specifications, tech stuff that we're going on today. Well, as usual, we're going to be asking and answering questions in the chat. So if you have questions, you can post them in the chat. You can comment. You can leave comments and questions. We're going to try to keep track of when those questions come in on the chat and what order they come in. So Oni will, when we get to the Q&A part, our colleague Oni will try to do our best to make sure that we get to you in the order in which your question was asked. Sometimes there may be a relevant question that piggybacks off of something that our speaker has said, so we may go to that. But in most cases, we're going to try to keep it in order that they were received. If you'd like to ask a question out loud, or if you'd like to come on, on stage and ask a question, you could click the reactions button and then click raise hand. You'll see I've raised my hand. You'll see I raised my hand. And so then we'll lower your hand once you get to ask your question. And at that point, I think that's pretty much it. If you have any technical issues, you can DM me by changing the to button there to me and then asking me whatever issue you need. With that, I'll hand it over to Oni Avincula, who's going to introduce our speaker for today and get us started. So Oni, go ahead.
Thank you, Joe, and good morning, and welcome everyone to today's press briefing with the IRS Taxpayers Advocate Service. I'm Oni, Project Coordinator for Ethnic Media Initiatives at the Center for Cooperative Media at Montclair State University. For our community and ethnic media partners, thank you so much for joining us. So why the focus on the IRS and this year's tax filing? While the 2022 tax season is now in full swing, about 35 million of taxpayers across the country are still waiting for their tax returns from last year to be processed or receive their refunds. Today, we are honored to have our main speaker, Erin Collins, the National Taxpayer Advocate, who will shed light on the IRS backlog, how it impacts families and businesses, what the Taxpayers Advocate Services does, and what the IRS plans to address the challenges, and what we can do as taxpayers as well. It sounds like a lot. Yes, it is. So this is going to be a very meaningful conversation, and we are just so fortunate that we have Erin with us to provide us this valuable information. So over to you now, Erin.
Thanks, Oni, and thank you for inviting me to participate today. I believe it's really important to get the message out to taxpayers about what the challenges are and ways that they could try and work around some of these difficult times that people are, dealing with. As you mentioned, last year, about this time, there were still 35 million taxpayers still waiting for their refunds or get their returns processed. Good news is that number has been whittled down. Right now, we're probably closer to about 17 million-ish returns that are still waiting to be processed. Those are paper returns that are either from last year or the current year. But we are probably north of 22 million of amended returns, original returns, correspondence. So the number is still very large. But the good news is the IRS is slowly whittling it down. It's not as fast as any of us would like, but is at least going in the right direction. So let me just give a little bit of an overview of the Taxpayer Advocate Service. So my position, the National Taxpayer Advocate, as well as Taxpayer Advocate Service, were established by Congress over 20 years ago. Code section is 7803C. We are an independent organization housed within the IRS, which is kind of an interesting concept for a lot of folks. We provide free service for eligible taxpayers. And when we say taxpayers, that includes all taxpayers, individuals, businesses, small businesses, large businesses, nonprofit. So basically anyone who files a tax return, in essence, qualifies for our service. We don't have an income limit in order to be eligible. So again, when I think about it, it's all taxpayers. So what the statute does is it's created TAS to do really two key functions. The first one is we resolve taxpayers' challenges with the IRS, and that's one-on-one. So for example, if a individual or a small business is having an issue with the IRS, if they qualify under case criteria, and I'll mention that in a minute, they can come in and we can assist them. And in essence, we're the advocate for the taxpayer. So we will work with the taxpayer, and then we will reach out to our colleagues on the IRS side and try and implement either the change or the correction. So TAS in and of itself, the way Congress created TAS, in order to keep our independence, we don't have delegated authority to actually institute the change. So again, that makes us more of an advocacy type role. So we then, as I said, reach out to our colleagues on the IRS to make that change. So when you think about what TAS is we're really the voice of the taxpayers. We help them kind of navigate the complex system dealing with the IRS. So that's big picture of what we do on the individuals. The other thing that Congress has requested of our office is that twice a year we file reports with Congress. We have the ability to point out problems with the IRS and challenges, and we make recommendations, both administrative recommendations as well as legislative recommendations, where either the IRS or Congress can try and fix a particular problem that we refer to as systemic. So it's across the board. It impacts either hundreds, thousands, or potentially millions of taxpayers. And we advocate for those change on a regular basis throughout the year, but we include the 10 most serious problems with respect to our report that's usually submitted to Congress in early January. We also spend a fair amount of time working with the IRS to ensure that taxpayers' rights are protected, so that when the IRS sends out a notice or deals with a taxpayer, we really try and take the view, how does this impact taxpayers and are taxpayers' rights protected, and try and inform taxpayers what those rights are when they deal with and work with the IRS. So that's sort of big picture. The other thing that I have the honor of working on is we also work with the low-income tax clinics across the country. So we implement the grant program that Congress provided, and we help administer and sort of oversee the clinics across the United States. And I believe there are 4 currently in New Jersey. So if you all have not been familiar with the clinics, and I can give you the names shortly, but we have 4 great clinics in New Jersey that work, and hence the name, low-income taxpayers. They have a dollar criteria of who they can help with respect to IRS matters. So we are a national organization. We're located across the U.S. We have about 77 or 78 local offices currently. We have our headquarters in Washington, D.C., down in the headquarters building or national office building on 1111 Constitution. We have about 1,650-ish employees. And again, we're divided sort of in 3 groups. One is our case advocacy. That's probably our largest percentage of our employees, and they work with our individual taxpayers across the U.S. And then we have a group that specifically focuses on systemic advocacy. So again, problems that impact taxpayers across the U.S. And then we also have our research team. So we've got a great group of people. If you've not worked with any of the local taxpayer advocates, please consider that as a possibility to help taxpayers or recommend taxpayers contact us. So again, we're independent, we're impartial, and we're also, it's confidential. So when a taxpayer talks to us about their challenges with the IRS, it's confidential between TAS and the taxpayers. So basically the criteria, as we call it, case criteria, and I believe there's some web pages that are going to be either added or provided to you all through some of the fact sheets. But if you go onto our website, taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov, we list the case criteria. So in essence, we have what I would call 2 buckets. We have taxpayers who are facing economic burdens, those who are suffering either an economic harm or they're facing an adverse action that the IRS is sort of knocking at your door, so to speak, and you're having trouble paying your taxes. Or if hiring an outside accountant or consultant would incur significant costs for you to represent yourself. That is something that we throw into our economic bucket. The other bucket we refer to as systemic burden. So that is when you are facing significant delays when dealing with the IRS. So although we're within the IRS, we basically are I would call it the safety net for taxpayers, the backstop. When you cannot get whatever you're trying to accomplish with the IRS, that's when it's appropriate to reach out to TAS. We're usually not the first stop. We want people to go to the IRS. They have 70, 80,000 employees. We have 1,600. So we try and focus on those taxpayers who are struggling with problems. And again, either an economic burden problem or a systemic burden. The challenge I think taxpayers and TAS have faced over this last year is, as you mentioned at the opening, there are millions and millions of taxpayers who have not received their refunds, who have not had their correspondence responded to timely. And the challenge we have is that means millions of taxpayers technically qualify for our service. So if you deal with one of our local taxpayer advocates or case advocates, please be kind. We have a very high workload. Our folks are doing the best they can trying to help everyone. But the challenge we have again is we have a higher percentage of our inventory coming in, and we're struggling closing cases because the IRS has had delays and other challenges on the back end. So we're kind of getting squeezed on both sides, but that shouldn't deter you from reaching out. It's just we are not as timely in our corrections and responses as we would like, but we are there to help taxpayers, and our local folks do everything they can to reach out and help those taxpayers. So that's sort of a high level of kind of what TAS is. Real quick, I just wanted to talk about some of the issues that impact New Jersey. So the IRS recently started what they refer to as IRS Taxpayer Experience Days. I think historically they used to refer to it as something like problem solving days. So as you may be aware, IRS has a group they refer to as the TAC, Taxpayer Assistance Centers. They're open across the country in most of the IRS buildings, and they're there to help taxpayers. Right now, it's appointment only Monday through Friday. So what the IRS decided to do was to set aside one Saturday every month in different places across the country for what we call walk-ins. You don't need an appointment, you can come in. The downside is sometimes it's a little bit of a longer wait than if you had an appointment, but there are many of our taxpayers who cannot come in Monday through Friday. So this has been a great solution. So on April 9th in Newark, they're having one of the Taxpayer Experience Days from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So if a taxpayer is having a particular issue, they can go to the tax center. And then on May 14th, they're having one in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And again, it's from 9 to 4 o'clock. So it's there to help taxpayers who have challenges with either the filing, with payments, with collection issues. Pretty much it runs the gamut. So if you're not able to make an appointment during the weekday, you can reach out. And then also there is a Veterans Problem Solving Day in Springfield, New Jersey, also on April 9th. And I see a message from Daryl Tucker. Daryl is one of our local taxpayer advocates. He is an amazing resource there in New Jersey. And I believe we are giving the information in the fact sheet of how to contact Daryl and others. So, again, there's a lot of events taking place throughout New Jersey right now that if taxpayers need help, they can reach out to. Also, as I mentioned, we have our low-income tax clinics. There are 4, and I'm going to try and cheat and find the addresses here, but there are 4 across the United States. One is in Springfield, New Jersey. I'm sorry, that is our taxpayer advocate. So we have Erica Sun in our Springfield, New Jersey office, and then Daryl Tucker is in our Trenton, New Jersey office. And then with respect to our clinics, we have one in Edison, New Jersey. That's the Legal Services of New Jersey Tax Legal Assistance Project. We have one in Jersey City, we have one in Newark, and we have one in Camden. So again, those are all available to help taxpayers if they have challenges. The other question we get a lot is on return preparation. So if the taxpayer qualifies, we have across the United States We refer to as VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. Those are for any individuals that have income, I believe it's 57,000 and under. You get free service. You can make an appointment. They're, again, located across the country. If you go into irs.gov, it'll list all of the VITA sites that you could reach out to. They have been a tremendous resource. And one of the key advantages, not only do you get free, great assistance from qualified individuals, you also get to file electronically. And as we started off this session today, we're referring to the backlog of inventory. Paper is not the IRS's friend. Right now, if you file electronically and there are no errors on your return, those returns are sailing through the system. Refunds are typically paid under 3 weeks, sometimes as short as 1 week from the time you file your return. So electronic, please do everything you can to get the message out to taxpayers. File electronic, file electronic, file electronic. And then also the other challenge is last year we saw a lot of inconsistencies on the stimulus payments. So if a taxpayer reported a number that was inconsistent with the IRS records, those returns were pulled out and they required manual processing. And some of those have delayed refunds 1 to 6 months or longer before they got resolved. So again, my recommendation, if a taxpayer received the monthly child tax credit payments or the stimulus payments, please make sure you verify that number. IRS sent out 2 separate letters informing you what the IRS records believe the number is. Or if you open or have an online account, you can go onto your online account and the IRS records will show what that payment is. So if that number is consistent with IRS records and you file electronically, and if you can attach your bank information for direct deposit, that really speeds up those refunds from getting out the door. If you file paper, unfortunately, it's first in, first out. They are still working millions of 2020 returns before they even get to the 2021. So if someone filed a paper return in, let's say, end of January, February, they haven't even started it. So it is a real challenge that taxpayers are facing. So I don't know if we want to maybe just open it up to some questions.
Yeah, that'd be great, Erin. Thank you so much. We actually have our first question here from Don Tagala of ABS-CBN News. Don, you may ask your question, please.
Okay, thanks. So, during the pandemic, we noticed a big surge in mostly amateur retail investors, and they're investors in Robinhood, Webull, SoFi, whatever. And so, what should they keep in mind as they file their taxes for the first time? There are going to be a lot of mistakes. It's quite confusing, and I also wanted to find out if are there any updates in relation to Biden's capital gains tax plan.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is once you get into capital gains, especially, I would say the average taxpayer, and that probably is 100 million people and above, are not experts on, computing the capital gain. And those are things, especially if they're the lower income folks, I highly recommend that they try and leverage VITA because they will be able to help them and walk them through that. IRS.gov has a tremendous wealth of information on there. The biggest challenge people have is finding it. Because that's the difficulty when you search irs.gov. So I'd recommend folks go to the irs.gov. Typically, we have a lot of frequently asked questions listed, and that might be able to walk them through. But as you pointed out, that is a difficult area that if you've not had to report capital gains before, and cryptocurrency is another one, how do you report it? What do you have to do? So fingers crossed that people can get as much help as they can on the preparation. Because, as you pointed out, that's a challenging area.
Thank you, Erin. Well, you mentioned about paper-based filing versus electronic, right? And that paper-based is not the most friendly way of doing it. But there is a huge digital divide among families in the country. For most people of color, families, and immigrants, the internet access is not even sufficient. So don't you think this is actually the digital divide do more harm than good in terms of the filing?
Yeah, the challenge that COVID created, I think pre-COVID, it was not as of a divide, as you use the term, because those paper returns were being processed. What COVID did caused a challenge for the IRS is, if you recall, at last 2 years ago, March, right about this time, businesses across the United States started closing. We started to stay in place. Everyone was, working from home, and IRS was no different. They shut down the processing facilities across the United States for a number of months for the health and safety of the employees and for the communities. The problem is that caused a huge problem with the backlog of documents. Over the last 2 years, they have not dug out of that hole. So you are correct. There is a percentage of our population that either are uncomfortable filing electronically or are unable to file electronically. They don't have a computer. They don't have internet. They don't have there are challenges. And I think we all recognize, and I'm not one of the ones that says everyone should file electronically. I think we should be respectful of those individuals. We should permit as many people as possible to file electronically if they want to, but the IRS should make arrangements for those who want a paper file. TAS has been advocating for a number of years that the IRS needs to modernize its technology with respect to paper. One of the things that we have recommended is that either the industry work with the IRS and put 2D barcoding. Like if you go to a grocery store and you ring the item through the little bars on the bottom, and now we're all getting used to QR codes at restaurants and whatnot. But if you put a code at the bottom of the tax return, it should be able to be read electronically. So we've been pushing the IRS in that direction, or possibly OCR, optical character recognition, where the computer could just scan it. So we've been talking to the IRS. We have been pushing it. I think they're hearing it. It just has not happened as fast as we would like. So we are advocating that they get that in place for next year. So as we come out of the problems for this year, we don't create new problems going forward. But we first got to clear the backlog that we currently have. And that's the real challenge that taxpayers are unfortunately living with and the IRS has to deal with.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Clivel Marcano of Reporte Hispano. Clivel, please ask your question.
Hi, good morning. One question. The family who didn't get the child credit tax because they didn't follow the taxes before, because they have very low income or for any other reason, what option they had? They had the option to get this year, or they just lost the credit?
No, so there's different types of child tax credits, but I think the one you're referring to is the monthly payments that came out last year. That
Yes.
started in June through December. So that is half of the credit. But if a taxpayer did not receive it, if they file currently, they will receive the entire credit with the current filing of the return. And if a taxpayer has not previously filed a tax return for the last 2 years, that means they didn't get a stimulus payment either. So if they file a tax return for the last 2 years, they will not only, if they qualify, either receive the child tax payment or the stimulus payments, or the what they also refer to as the EIP payment. But you can put those on the current return and you will receive both of those payments. You have to file 2 separate returns if you're looking for the 2020 returns were the first and second stimulus, and the 2021 was the third stimulus. And then again, you also have various credits. You have earned income tax credit they could qualify for. And that's based off of your income and or if you have children. The child tax credit. So there's many credits that Congress has provided for taxpayers, but unfortunately, they do require the filing of a tax return.
So how these people,
So-
usually these people who didn't make the taxes because they low income, and they don't know all this information that they can get all this credit and all this help that other people get. So when they go to the taxes, usually they're looking for people who maybe is no professional or they don't know anything, all this detail. So what is the best way for these
Yep.
people to do a tax and get all these credits? Because they don't know, maybe
Right.
the people who
So,
do the taxes for them maybe
and
don't
you,
know anything about this.
right. Well, I've been doing this for many years and I work for the IRS. I still have trouble doing my tax returns sometimes. It's complicated. So, my first recommendation is if they can use one of the VITA programs or individuals that work for VITA. They are a tremendous resource, and if the taxpayer brings in their records, the VITA individual will walk them through all the benefits that they're entitled to. So that would be my first recommendation. And then the other side of that extreme is do not go to someone who's unscrupulous. There are preparers out there that really take advantage of those who are not in the know, the low-income folks. If someone is charging you a commission based on your refund, you should probably get up and walk out the door. You really want to check as to who that provider is. I know there's a lot of well-intentioned folks, so sometimes they're family members that try and help other family members, but if they are entitled to the credits, they really should be going to someone who is either an enrolled agent, a certified accountant, is associated with a credible organization. There's another issue that comes up specifically with lower income folks, where an organization will prepare your return, and let's say they say, okay, you have a refund of $6,000. If you want, we'll give you the $6,000 right now, but we'll take a fee and we'll charge you when the refund comes in. They basically take a percentage. There's a high percentage of taxpayers that actually do that. And, again, I think if they need the money today, I certainly understand, but you're paying a fee for something you could get for free somewhere else. So if the taxpayer files electronically, has no errors on the return, they'll receive their refund 1 to 3 weeks at the latest. So for someone to take a fee of, let's say, 10% so that you get a refund that day versus waiting a week, I mean, those are things that taxpayers should understand the consequences of what they're doing and make an informed decision. So that is a challenge that's out there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what they're doing, but the question really is, does the taxpayer understand that they don't have to go that route and they could save that money and wait an extra week or two by not agreeing to those agreements?
Yeah. Thank you.
Wow, this is really such a complex, topic, but very interesting and informative. Our next question actually comes from Marivir Montibon. She is the publisher of a Filipino-American magazine. Marivir.
Thank you, Oni. Good morning, everyone. My question to Erin is, are student loan payments refundable this time?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head. So I know 1 or 2 of my guys are on here. So call a friend, tell a friend. Does anybody know the answer to that? Because unfortunately, I don't know the answer. But we can find out and get back to you.
Thank you so much.
And Mohsin Zahir of Urdu News comes next. Mohsin.
Thank you very much. First of all, this is for the first time we got to know about the Tax Advocate Service. Whatever you told us about the tax matters are big and breaking news, but more big breaking news is what you people are doing for the taxpayers. So thank you very much. My question is, if some taxpayer contact for help to Tax Advocate Service, how much time do you take to extend help, and how much backlog issues do you have right now with you?
Yeah, so it's facts and circumstances. Every office is different, but what we are seeing across the country, unfortunately, is the top 5 of our issues are all process related. These are people who didn't get their refunds last year or filed an amended return and hasn't been processed. There's been a challenge with their return, it's held up. So right now, those are taking extraordinarily long periods of time to get resolved. So I would like to tell you we're a quick fix, but we're not. Because again, we can identify the problem and we can advocate, but until the IRS, for example, if they don't have your return, they've got to locate that return. And right now, if you've got a pile of returns sitting there, how do they find your return, pull it out and work it? So that has been the real challenge we've been faced with, those backlog of paper returns, whether it be an original or amended return. So, but again, if you have what we are taking someone last year. So if a taxpayer has filed a return prior to June 1 of last year, you can reach out to the local taxpayer advocate and they can assist. And the reason we have that cutoff date is the returns after that time are still sitting in a pile. So we can't find them. They're not in the system. And so until they hit the IRS system, we can't get those processed. So we're hoping that's going to be a rolling date. And as the IRS gets more caught up, we'll be taking more returns in. But right now, if one of the taxpayers filed an amended or an original return last year for the first half of the year, we are working those cases, and you can reach out to the local taxpayer advocate.
Thank you. Diego Maya, of the publisher of the Latino, I'm blanking, sorry, the Latino Spirit, has a question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Diego.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
I have a business, a for-profit and a nonprofit registered 501c3. And my question is, I do a lot of activities covering community events, and those in you know, all those, when I cover those events, it comes out of my pocket. Is there any way that I could itemize or I don't know, do it as a donation and put that into my taxes, into my personal taxes or my business taxes? I never, you know, this is the opportunity that I have to find out. So I never knew if I could do this.
Yeah, so I try not to give tax advice because although I am a tax lawyer, I'm not functioning in a tax lawyer role. It really depends on the facts and circumstances of, you know, the company, how the payments are made, you know, how it goes through the system. So, you know, it kind of depends on the facts and circumstances. So I don't want to give an answer that's generic without knowing more specifics. Again, I think it's something you could probably find on irs.gov. And if you qualify, that would be a great question to ask some of the VITA folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question here from Jungwon Lee of Yonhap Daily and Korea Daily News. And he wants me to ask your question. Or Jungwon, you're already there. You want to ask your question instead?
No, that was me just
Come
spotlighting
on
him.
back.
Oh, sorry. Well, here's his question. Many parents request childcare tax credit and get frustrated when childcare providers refuse to provide their EIN number. How can parents gather information regarding childcare tax credit? What type of spending qualify childcare tax credit?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating because the question is, why do they not provide that information? Which would make me wonder, you know, what other rules are they not potentially following? So I think to me, that's just sort of a red flag as to, is there an issue here? But you should be able to get that information from the individuals. But again, if they don't have it, they're not going to give it to you. But I would still put the information on the return. It may be pulled and the IRS may come back and ask particular questions. So, but if you are paying for legitimate child care, you should be trying to get that benefit when you file those returns.
Thank you, Erin. The next question comes from Kamau Kagulia, sorry, Kamau, of the Nubian News.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for being here. Someone was telling me a couple of weeks ago that they got a stimulus check this year? I mean, in the past month or so, is that something that is coming from Biden's package, or maybe that's coming from in the past? But is there a new stimulus check?
Yeah, I am not aware that there are any new stimulus checks. What I think one of two things could happen. One is they filed a tax return and they informed the IRS they did not receive their stimulus check last year. And by filing the return, and it's called a rebate credit, recovery rebate credit, or RRC. You can ask the IRS if you didn't receive last year's, they will pay it with this year's tax return. So it may be that they filed a tax return to receive their credit. And then we've had situations where people have reached out to the IRS and there was a payment issue as it wasn't mailed correctly, or they have a stop payment, or it's basically a reissuance of a prior check. So there are no new payments going out currently. I've heard the folks on the Hill talking about it in Congress that maybe, but as of right now, there's nothing in the works. So I suspect, again, they were either truing it up and receiving it as part of their refund this year, or they were correcting a problem of a prior check that they got reissued.
Thank you.
Erin,
So unfortunately, no, there are no payments.
It looks like our media partners here have a lot of follow-up questions. If they do make some follow-up, should we address it to Lindsay, or should we put that information in the chat box?
Yeah, if you could send it through Lindsay, that would be great. Needless to say, it's hard to answer every single question. But we can try and see if there's sort of a pattern of questions and get you some of the information. So that's probably the best way to do it. One of the other things I did prior to this morning, we kind of looked at some, stats specific to New Jersey, some of the things I thought were kind of interesting. So our group, our research folks, back in looking at the 2018 tax returns, determined that 78% of taxpayers in New Jersey are eligible for the earned income tax credit. But when you look at the 2019 tax returns filed, only 13% of the New Jersey returns claimed the EITC. So to me, that means there's a lot of taxpayers out there that are unaware of the EITC that are qualified and really should be requesting the credit. So that's something, again, need your help. Get the information out there that folks can file the EITC. I think this gets back to the paper challenge. So for example, if you file on paper, you don't really understand the credit and there's nothing prompting you. Whereas if you go to VITA, or if you use one of the software companies, they'll usually prompt you and say, you may qualify for EITC, and then they'll ask you certain questions. So currently the software programs will prompt you. And again, if you go to VITA or if you go to a credible enrolled agent or CPA, they should be asking you those questions. But it was disturbing to me to see the difference between 78% qualified in 2018, but only 13% actually requested the credit. So that's a huge difference to me, and that's sending a message that taxpayers are not taking advantage of it. The other thing I thought was interesting was that the adjusted gross income for New Jersey, you guys, I guess, yay, you are 21% higher than the average in the US. So if you look at all returns, it's about 92,000 is the average. Now, needless to say, you've got a lot of folks below that number, a lot of folks above that number. But I thought that was sort of an interesting statistics that you're 21% higher than the average. The other thing that is, we were looking at is there's in New Jersey about 4.5 million tax returns are filed out of New Jersey, and that equates to about almost 3% of the whole U.S. So, again, you might be small, but you're a mighty little state. And I'd also, as I said, let's get those credits out there. Congress created those credits for a reason. We want to help these individuals, help their families. And, again, I was very disturbed to see the number of only 13% of those who potentially are eligible claim the credit. So, you all, if you do nothing else, please get that message out. Let people know what the EITC is. Give them a link to the irs.gov or our webpage at Taxpayer Advocate. We have a section on that as well. But we really need to get those individuals who need it. And then also folks who haven't filed, received their stimulus checks. They need to file a tax return, even if it's zero. If they have income of zero, that still qualifies them to receive the 3 rounds of stimulus checks. But if they haven't filed the 2020 or 2021 return, they won't receive it.
We have a couple of follow-up questions, but Mohsin and Dawn, we'll come back to you after Clyde asks his question. Let's just give Clyde first the opportunity to ask his. Clyde, please unmute yourself.
Expecting to be on, but here I am.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. I wanted to know, with the credits that you just talked about, do you have a racial and ethnic background? Because I think historically, underserved minorities will probably make up the bulk of people who don't know those credits are available or how to file them. So if you have a racial or ethnic background, that would really help me flesh this out, get a story out, and get these communities contacted and spread the word.
Yeah, and I don't know, good news or bad news, IRS does not keep data based on any ethnic associations. So IRS does not have those records. We do have records with respect to zip codes. So we can see certain zip codes, and we have certain records with respect to zip codes. So you could maybe extrapolate that back to a particular community, but we wouldn't be able to tell you what the ethnic, if they're Hispanic or Vietnamese, or, we don't keep those records. IRS is just started trying to get as much in other languages as possible. It is a project that the current Commissioner Reddick, is very proud of, trying to get as much both on the internet as well as tax forms and instructions in various languages. So that has been one of his sort of areas that he's been focusing on. And one of the things that they do on the tax return is you can request that if you're dealing with an IRS agent, you would like to speak in fill in the blank language, and they list a bunch of languages. So they do have that on the tax return with respect to communication, but they are not keeping any sort of statistics with respect to that data. So again, there's a lot of data on zip codes, and depending on what you're looking for, that might be something we could point you in the right direction.
Oh, okay, yes, please point me in the right direction. And let me ask to make it a little easier, because sometimes zip codes can be cumbersome. Do you have those broken down by counties?
I can find out for you. At top of my head, I want to say yes, but I never want to talk off the top of my head because I may be wrong. But let's see what we can get for you and what the breakdowns are, and we can forward that along to the group and get it out to the various members.
Fantastic, thank you.
This is how we can see, how vibrant ethnic media is in New Jersey. In fact, one of our questions that's going to come up next is from Turkish Journal, who would have thought that there is a huge Turkish population in New Jersey. Selçuk Akar, please ask your question.
Thank you. Thank you for briefing. What are your recommendations about recommendation to double citizens in the New Jersey state? Like, because, for example, most of Turkish people have a double citizenship.
Well, they can still file tax returns. If they're earning U.S. income, they should be filing tax returns here. So that in itself should not per se be an issue. Some of the benefits that Congress provides may require either residency or other types of requirements, but I don't think dual citizenship is going to cause them any challenges when they're filing those returns. So they should be able to file returns without any issues.
Okay, thank you.
And back to the prior gentleman's question about individuals who haven't filed, IRS just came out with some recent statistics on individuals that did not file a 2018 tax return. So more than you may need to know, but there is a tax code section that says you're entitled to a refund if it's 3 years from the time you filed your tax return. So withholdings, for if you're working and your company withholds tax, is deemed paid on, let's say, April 15th of whatever the year is, the following year. So for 2018, if someone was working in 2018, they didn't file their tax return, they have till this April to file that return from 3 years ago to get those withholdings. And for the state of New Jersey, 1.5 million taxpayers did not file their 2018 tax return that have refunds. I'll say that again, 1.5 million New Jerseyans did not file a 2018 return, but potentially have refunds that are sitting on the IRS's book. So if someone did not file that previous return, and now they may have other income or things that will reduce the withholding down to zero, I don't know. But if you know of folks or you can get the word out that they should really look at that. And I think it's about, I'm looking at my cheat sheet here, $40 million right now they're associated with New Jersey taxpayers who haven't filed those returns in 2018. So 40 million, guys, that could help a lot of people.
Wow. Wow. Erin, we have less than 15 minutes, but we have 4 more questions in the pipeline. 3 of them are follow-up questions. But let's have Marie Carmen Amado of New Jersey Hispano to ask her question, and then we'll go back to the 3 follow-up questions. Marie Carmen, please ask your question.
Alessandra. Okay. Hi, Eddie. Thank you for the workshop. My question is, what can you recommend to taxpayers so they can benefit from the earned income tax credit? Because most of them, well, not most of them, some of them fill the application by themselves, and probably they are unaware what is the process to get the AITC. Also, others fill it out to tax preparers, but the tax preparers are not probably doing well because we are seeing so much people that are not getting the benefit. So, and this, wrong word prevents the taxpayer receive these funds. What can you recommend in this case?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, every return preparer should be familiar with the rules. And it's sad that we have a lot of preparers out there who are just, I hate to say it, in there for the quick buck trying to prepare those returns. They need to go to someone that they can trust. So that should be number one. Find someone who they believe is credible. IRS does have on irs.gov a list of licensed individuals, and it has it by state, by city. So that's sort of a referral. Again, VITA is always a great option. And even if the self-help software, if they're in a position that they could try and do it themselves, a lot of the self-help or the software that they sell, and there's also Free File on irs.gov. It'll walk you through the criteria. So for the earned income credit, I think of it as sort of a bell curve. Depending on if you're single or if you have multiple children, the numbers change. It's as low as, I think the individuals now is around 1,500. I forget, they changed it this year, but it could be as much as 6,000 or more. And if you have multiple children, it could be a lot more than that. So depending on how many children they have, what their income is, it's kind of a moving target. And that's why you really need to have somebody who understands the credit. It's on the tax return, and there are instructions on the tax returns. But again, that doesn't mean an average person could actually understand them when they go through it. So for EITC, that's another reason why it's so important to get out to VITA or somewhere that could really help them walk them through that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go back to Clivel Marcano for his follow-up question, and then Mohsin Sahir.
Basically, it's almost the same what Mari Carmen just asked. Basically, I want to know, the IRS required to the people who prepare the taxes, the tax preparation, they give some training or something, because it's what you say is these people who do the taxes for the regular guys, they don't know what they're doing, because they don't know everything, all this credit that people can apply. You said when the tax season start, we see many small business, many people who start to doing this tax preparation. I wonder that they are not qualified. They don't have the training, because the law, I understand, every year they change. The tax law every year has something new. So it's required that these people have any training, or how we can know which one is people who really know what he's doing.
Yeah, so, and I say this sincerely, reach out to Congress. We have been requesting that the IRS have the authority to basically regulate paid preparers. And we've asked Congress to allow the IRS to do that. Right now, the law has been discussed, it's been up, it's been in bills, out of bills. As far as I know right now, there's nothing pending, although we are pushing that there be some paid prepare regulations so that we do just that. We take the individuals off who do not have the training and require some sort of annual training for them to prepare returns. You know, the EITC credit is complicated because, you know, in today's society, it's not your typical husband and wife living there with 2 children. We have situations where the children go back and forth between the father and the mother, maybe living with a grandmother. They may be living with the grandmother and the mother. I mean, you have a lot of questions as to who's entitled to take the benefit of that particular child. That's one of the more complex things about EITC that, you know, our office, as well as others, have been recommending for years that Congress simplify EITC because it is just too complicated. And again, it hasn't happened yet. So please, every one of you, feel free to reach out to your local congressman or senator, push the paid prepare regulations as well as simplify EITC, because it is a challenge for individuals. And it is difficult for them to get it right, so to speak. And then the IRS, they audit about 1% of the EITC returns, or returns claiming the EITC. And, you know, for those individuals, some of them really struggle trying to get the documentation and working with the IRS. So, and their refunds are held up until those returns are processed. So while that audit is still pending for EITC, their refund is not paid out. So we've got to help individuals understand what the rules are, have them, you know, have the documentation ready if need be, if they get audited. And then also try and simplify it, because again, it's just too complicated the way that, you know, we all live nowadays. It's not, you know, back in the 50s where, you know, again, you have husband and wife and 2 children. We have very complex, you know, family arrangements. And, you know, the EITC is not current with, you know, current society.
Thank you, Erin.
So I don't know if that helps.
No, the IRS require any annual preparation, any training for the people who do the taxes? They have to do any training before they do the taxes annually, or no?
So we want that. IRS does want that. TAS, we've been pushing that for, I don't know, maybe a decade. IRS originally started down that path, and the courts held IRS did not have the legal authority to do it. And so it's sitting with Congress. So until Congress mandates it, IRS can't enforce it. So it's kind of, the ball is in their court. So if any congressional folks are listening, please, we really need these regulations to be passed, because, you know, unfortunately, those from the underserved communities are typically the ones who are taken advantage of. So, you know, we really need to get that training. We need to get people certified, and we need to make sure that, you know, we don't have unscrupulous. We all make mistakes, but those aren't the people I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the people who don't know what they're doing, but they're charging money just to prepare a return. And unfortunately, people are trusting them because maybe they speak the same language or they live in the same community, and people aren't looking at per se the qualifications.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So please help me get that word out because I would love to see it.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Omi.
All right. So we have about 3 questions here, but I'm going to give it back to Moshin first because he's been patiently waiting. Moshin, please ask your follow-up question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Erin, what would you say to undocumented immigrants with regards to filing taxes, stimulus checks they received, child tax credits, etc.? And second question is, do your office provide help over the phone? And if yes, may we have the contact numbers in different cities or any toll-free number?
So I'll start at the end, and I think I'm Sheila. I can look at you so I can see you. I assume we're posting somewhere the Daryl's number and Erica's number. So those are the 2 local folks. So you will have that information. But remember, we don't give tax advice per se. We usually deal with the problems after the fact. So if you call our offices, they're going to politely take you back to IRS folks. Some of the credits do require either a Social Security number, I-10 or other types of things. And there are different requirements depending on the different credits. So I don't want to have a general rule across the board, but they should definitely look into whether or not they do qualify. I think the stimulus payment required a Social Security number. So again, depending on what the credit is, they may or may not qualify. There's usually on the FAQs, frequently asked questions on irs.gov, it will give that information. So maybe that's a link that we could send out to you.
Okay, we're almost there, but here are 2 questions for you, Erin. I got this text message from one of the reporters here. How does excessive processing and refund delays harm taxpayers? And moving forward, not just this year, although this year is very important, what are TAS and the IRS in general plan of action to address the backlog in the future?
So hopefully there will be no backlog in the future, but that's being a little optimistic because we still have that backlog. We will have the backlog through this year. The real challenge for the IRS is, can we start next fiscal year or next filing season without a backlog? That is the IRS's goal. They are moving employees around and taking them off other positions to move them into the processing of these paper returns. Their goal is to be complete before year end, so we don't have a backlog carrying over. It really is going to depend on a couple things, one of which is, how quickly they can get through the backlog, but more importantly, how many new paper returns come in. Because if they process one paper return from last year and they get a new one coming in, net, they're in the same place. So we've got to get not only the last year's paper returns processed, but we have to get all of these year's paper returns processed. So that's the challenge the IRS is facing. With respect to TAS, as I said, we are trying to have as many workarounds as we can on our procedures and dealing directly with the IRS and helping try and get some of those returns processed, because that's the #1 challenge. And you mentioned what is the harm, and I'm going to have the statistic wrong, but I'm close. If anyone goes to our annual report, it has the actual statistics, but I think it's 70 or 77% of all returns filed are refunds. So back to your question, what's the harm? That means the overwhelming majority of those returns are waiting for refunds. And some of those were filed 10, 11 months ago, and they still haven't received a refund. So that is a huge harm to me. And, depending on what year and what statistics you look at, the average refund is anywhere from $2,800 to $3,400. And a lot of that are the credits that Congress intended for these individuals to have, and they are still waiting for those credits. So that is the biggest harm of this backlog. It's not only the frustration and the annoyance, but it's typically they expect to receive those refunds in April. of last year, and they still haven't received them. And I can tell you, based on if you file paper, you are not going to receive a refund this year before April. At this rate, maybe September, maybe October. It just really depends how they process these last year's returns. Once they get through last year's, they'll start on the January returns that are filed. But if you're filing the return today, you're looking at minimum 3, 6+ months down the road. So please have everybody try and get those returns in electronically, because that's going to help everyone, and it will also help tax administration, so we can get everybody else's process at the same time. So that is my request and plea to all of you to figure out how to help these taxpayers get these returns filed electronically so they can get their refunds timely.
Erin, thank you very much. We can't really express enough how we appreciate you and the staff at TAS. Thank you for our reporters and everyone here for your time and participation today. We will send the recording of this event along with the links that were sent or were written in the chat box. This press briefing is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
I love that adjourned. That's good. It sounds like
Thank
it's
you so
official. Thank you, Erin. I appreciate it. Yeah, look for the follow-up email, folks, and the recording as well. And then we'll let you know when our next press briefing is scheduled. We'll be using the same Zoom link as always. And as always, check back to our website, centerforcooperativemedia.org/programs to see our events calendar if you ever have any questions. So we'll see you later. Have a great Tuesday, folks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.